You're always just coming up with random one-offs there, Chris.
What are you talking about?
I don't know.
Why?
You're just a
It's
spitfire
a
over
good
there,
point,
man.
actually. I am. Well, I'm a little ornery today.
You are. But I think your mood just got lifted because we just had an interview, a discussion with David Williams. And
Yeah, that was great.
Fun, easygoing, really, really interesting geology talk. That's the kind. It feels like the conversations where it just feels like you're just kind of sitting around talking about something you're passionate about, with some cool, like, mind-opening factoids sprinkled in.
That's right.
I guess.
Well, here's what I loved about it. We're talking about we interviewed David B. Williams, the author of Stories in Stone. And
amongst
what I
many
loved
other
about
books about geology,
yes,
walking
that's
tours
true.
of Seattle. I mean, his publication list is huge, and really impressive, and covers a wide range of stuff. But Stories in Stone is one of them. So yeah.
Yeah, but I just loved the walk down memory lane for me as I read the book, which I found the book like very easy to read. It was enjoyable. It was written very well. But I just found myself thinking about my own experiences in different cities, big, small, everything in between. I can't help it when I'm in a city, when I'm up in Marquette and in the Upper Peninsula in Michigan, I'm looking at the Jacobsville sandstone and
all the buildings. Totally.
That's
Totally.
right. And then I see some of that in downtown Grand Rapids too. And I'm like, oh, that's cool. That I know exactly where this came from. And so I loved that aspect of it.
I agree with that, Chris. And it's like, it was really, really well written book with kind of the type of book where you're learning something, but you don't recognize it yet. Like, it's kind of learning sprinkled in. It's just easy learning where you don't recognize it. And then you wake up the next morning, you're like, oh yeah, brownstone, this really cool fact about brownstone and the history of New York City buildings. And it's like, oh, okay, I didn't even realize I was learning. It was not forced upon me. I just kind of assimilated the information because it's really well written and covers a wide range of stuff. It's a great book. He's a really interesting guy, really interesting geological story. Has his undergrad from Colorado College, which has produced, as we talked about, lots of geologists, and for a small liberal arts college, and has a pretty wide-ranging experience set from being a park ranger in Arches to now author, leading these walks and talks and guided walks, and has a newsletter for geology. So you can find all of that at geologywriter.com, which is David Williams' website there. But we love this conversation. Stories in Stone. It's a great book. You can purchase it on his website. I don't know, Chris. I have a new appreciation. I'm going to go look at the bank building that I drive past every day, and I'm going to see, is it made of granite? Is some stone that signifies, security and protection and longevity, or what? What's going on here? And look at some of the stones at Penn State and see what they're made of.
That's right. Well, hey, Jesse, before we get to the interview, I do want to just say I had a thought. And my thought is that we always ask the question at the end of the interview, what was your best day as a geoscientist? And I had the thought today that you and I have we've never asked each other that question. And so just that's coming
true.
up not in this episode, but in the future, you and I.
Now. Okay. All right.
Yeah, we're not gonna.
It's
no,
stressful.
We need to think about this, but we're gonna bring that as a part of an episode.
Chris, I'd like to think my best day as a geoscientist is still ahead of me. What do you think?
Yeah, I think so. But that's not the question. What has been your best day as a geoscientist? That's the question.
All right. Hey, David Williams coming at you. All right, David Williams, future Pulitzer Prize winning David.
Thank you.
Right?
Thank you.
Welcome to Planet Geo. We're excited to talk to you, and it's a great pleasure reading your book. I really loved it. Stories in Stone. Sorry, one of your many books. I really enjoyed this book, so I'm happy to center our conversation. Welcome. Excited to talk to you.
Great. Thank you for having me, Jesse and Chris. Yeah, I mean, for me, the book was such a delight to write and to travel to. So to be able to talk more about it, and Building Stone, to me, it's just such a great way to allow a wide variety of people to connect into the geological world.
Yeah. That's really cool.
It is one way. Yeah, you can open your mind, even if you're not outside. Outside, we talk about, geology gives you this like really complicated 3-dimensional long time horizon view of the world, but you can still do that in cities, which I really appreciate about that. Sorry, Chris.
Yeah, no, David, I do have a question though. Why don't you have the vest? Like, I I saw that you have a vest for every book, and
because my brain is, I mean, give me a second, I can run into the other room and get the vest with the dinosaurs and wearing boxers. So
you have now am I right?
funny.
You have a different vest for each book then?
for the last 4 books, yeah. So I've co-authored a book about Washington State fossils. So that's got fossils. It's got trilobites on the front and mastodons on the back. I've got a couple of different ones about Seattle. One's a map of Seattle. I have a book about Puget Sound that has rockfish in the book, vest. So yes. So I have 4 keyed directly to books, and then I have another 3 or 4 that just fit my weirdness. So
do you have a vest that has a Brunton compass on it? Do you have that?
no, I haven't. I'm sure I know the material's out there,
shocking.
but
Yeah.
yeah,
All right.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so sadly, no.
Okay.
Well,
all right. Fair
David,
enough.
let's go back to the origin story. We always ask this because Chris has a very distinct aha moment, and Chris was the aha moment for me. Why I got into geoscience was Chris Boyce. What was your origin story for geoscience? How'd you get into the field, and kind of what was your trajectory like?
Interestingly enough, I did not initially go to college with geology in mind. I went to a little liberal arts college, and that school had a program where you could focus a little bit on engineering and then continue on. So I actually went to school to study how to design bicycles, like alternative,
Interesting.
the bikes that are out there now with carrying this and toting that. I thought that's what I wanted to do. Then I took a physics class, and I got a 16% on a quiz.
Well, that can be okay in a physics class.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, it wasn't. I don't know. To this day, I have no idea how I passed the class, but I had taken a geology class. I had been on a bike trip, my first break in college, and someone said, "Oh, you should take Intro to Geo."
Mm-hmm.
And I took it and loved it, and then realized that I was really good at majoring in field trips. So
Okay.
some people call
awesome.
that
Yes.
geology.
So-
That's that's one of the upsides. It's a huge
Yes,
upside.
exactly. So that.
Oh,
Go ahead.
can I interrupt
Please,
real quick
yeah.
there, David? So you went to Colorado College, right? Is that correct? Okay. Colorado College has, as you well know, has a outsized impact on the field of geosciences. Like there are so many professional geologists who are who got into it at Colorado College. Do you have insight as to why that is? Like your experience? Is
my
that
one thought would be, the school has this unusual education style. You take one class at a time for 3.5 weeks, and that's the only class. So, like in, say, the basic, the 200 level class, crystallography and mineralogy, that you either pass or don't. The professor said the first day of class, he said, "I expect 40 hours a week out of you for this class," and that's what I did. We all did that at least, but then, every class had at least a week of field time. So I was always out in the field. So I think that field time really, bonded us with geology, but also bonded us with other people in the department.
like sort of cohort building?
We just built a relationship around rocks. And when I was there was just a dynamic group of professors. And I mean, how could you not get excited when you're in Colorado? Phenomenal rock. That if you don't like Colorado, you go to Arizona, you go to Utah, you go to New Mexico. So just sort of,
and maybe
the whole environment.
Is there something to that? I've always thought that there's something special to that. You said 3.5 weeks.
Yeah, it's called a block. So it's the block.
So yeah, that block system for geoscience specifically, you can really get it. Maybe there's something particularly attractive to the field of geosciences in that block schedule, because you get, like you said, you get to do a field trip it's by default basically. It's amazing how many professional geologists have come out of Colorado College given its student population size.
Yeah, and for a little liberal arts school. So
totally. But you're right. Yeah,
David,
it's Colorado Springs, right? Is that where it's at? I think. Yeah. I mean, stunning geology right out your back
exactly.
door. So that's awesome. Yeah.
David,
anyway,
do you stay in touch with the department there at Colorado College? In other words, do you know what's going on there now?
I'm off and on in contact with. I'm a couple of the people who are in the department, majors in my years, I'm still somewhat in touch with. None of them, well, beyond the professor, but none of my friends who majored stayed in geology. I mean, I even have one friend, she went on, got her PhD in paleontology, and ended up not, I mean, she did it for a while, and then she now works for the United Nations. So,
Oh, wow.
Oh wow,
Okay.
super interesting.
I asked the
Wow.
question because I wonder if it's the same, the level of rigor today. Do you think, do you have a thought on that?
no clue. I mean, it's, it's such a different thing. I would assume, like, we had to memorize the formula of, 150 minerals and ID something in that neighborhood. I don't know, maybe they still do that, but I just think people are so much, obviously when I was out, and this was 40 years ago when I graduated from, or almost 40 years, I graduated from college. If I wanted to look up the formula of a mineral, I, basically had to have, Hurlbut and Klein with me and look it up.
Yeah.
And nowadays, it's in your hand. So I don't know. I mean, it's a good
Yeah.
question, but I really don't know if how that works.
Interesting. All right.
So was that, were you hooked from the outset, from that first intro level class field trip, or was there something later on that really got you into, rocks specifically as opposed to other parts of the geosciences in your course curriculum? Or
Our course, the curriculum there is pretty broad. And I mean, I loved paleo. I found I think maybe what the aha moment was, really being engaged with the idea of, I'm out hiking. Why does the landscape look like it does? And that's still a central theme for me of wanting to know, why does a place look like it does? And geology is obviously the driver for that. And then that idea also that geology affects us every single day. I mean, I think I did my senior thesis on like the comprehensive nuclear test ban and how you could use seismicity for that. And so I think it was that combination of those two things that really sealed it for me. And I've been doing it ever since.
Okay. That's interesting. Jesse, do you have a follow-up on that, or?
Oh yeah, but I'm sure you do too. Go
Okay.
ahead,
Well,
go for
no,
it.
I just, so David, kind of along that same line then, what led to the book then? Was there an aha moment for this? Was there something that happened with the
clearly.
Stories in Stone? Yeah.
Yeah. So after college, I moved to Southern Utah, and I lived there for 9 years. I was a park ranger at Arches. So, I mean, it was like in, geology nirvana, it really, on so many levels, from the fact that I was talking about it, I was hiking it, I was canoeing it, it just really became out. So my wife and I moved to Boston. She was going to grad school. And I had this major disconnect with where I was, living in Boston from Moab.
Yeah, right.
But
Yeah,
I started,
tough transition.
yeah, a little tough. I started looking at the building stone, and I distinctly remember one day at Harvard, going up to their oldest building on campus, Harvard Hall, and the base of the building was a brown sandstone, what they in the East Coast is called brownstone. And, unfortunately, I didn't have a rock hammer, so I couldn't knock off a little piece, but I just was sort of rubbed the building, not like an ooh, but, like feeling it. And these sand grains collected in my hand. And I realized at that moment that what people in the East Coast called brownstone was exactly the same rock as the red rock of Southern Utah. They just have a different name, a little bit different environment. And so I had that connection of that idea that I could connect these stories, wilder stories and urban stories, and mix them together with that human aspect. And the other part of it was that I think what I was trying to do with Stories in Stone was, I think it's easier to sneak in the science if you weave it through human stories or architecture. And so that was that realization, is I could combine the human stories and the geological stories and hopefully engage people in noticing the geology.
Yeah, you did that very nicely. That came across very well. I mean, I appreciated, both the depth of geological story that you tied in for each rock, and also the history. Like, I really enjoyed, the Morton gneiss. I mean, talking about some of the oldest building stone rock that there probably is out there, but the quarrying history and the discovery and the sort of recognition of this is a good building stone is a really interesting. You blended it really nicely together. How did you go about picking? I forget how many chapters now there are, but
10 or 11
rock,
10 or 11.
Yeah, okay, I was going to say a dozen. How did you go about picking those particular, nearly a dozen rocks out of all the building stones that you could that you could possibly choose from, some of which are spectacularly beautiful and some of which are a little bit more boring maybe to look at in some ways. Like what was that filtering process like for you?
Yeah. So initially, so when I lived in Boston, there are two things. One, I was trying to become a writer. I'd done a little bit of writing, but I thought, so I got into this idea of building stone. And yeah, it's just amazing how many people who were non-geologists just thought that it was just a great idea. I mean, it's like my one great idea I've ever had. So in Boston, I started piecing together the stories there. What are the stories in Boston? And then,
so you mean rocks that are
on buildings in Boston,
stones
yeah.
in Boston.
So
okay,
Quincy
gotcha. Was
granite.
the first idea to build like a Boston City building stone book, or
no? Initially,
you...
I really just wanted to think about. I had those stories to begin with, certain stories to begin with. Then, as I started, I mean, what really happened was I had submitted this idea of building stone to a bunch of different magazines. I had pretty good success, and I decided I either needed to write a book about it or move on in my life and do something else. And I found an agent. She really liked it. And then I knew I had certain criteria. I wanted to have different rocks from, I think granite's the only thing that's repeated in there. So I knew I wanted to have different rocks. I wanted to have them dispersed around the country. I wanted to stay generally in the US. There's 2 from Italy. I knew I wanted to have buildings that were interesting. So it was a combination of things. I mean, there are ones I went down like basalt, like there's nothing, I don't have a basalt chapter, which is super interesting, but there were no stories that grabbed me. So it was those different aspects of it.
I would love to see the throwaway list. Like, how long is the throwaway list of like building stones you went through? Like, no, this doesn't check all the boxes, or it's like this is the ranked second for some reason. Like, I mean, that must have been a long list to go through all these things.
That's a good point, Jesse. So, David, I have a question for you. If you did another edition, what would you add? But you can't. You have to take something away. Got to keep the number of chapters where they're at. What would you add? What would you
do? So you're saying would you add one and kick out? What
I might do is I might try and go international, which would open some things up I couldn't do, like the flint stone. I think it's the flint stone that's used at a lot of places in England. Maybe look at some of the carved, not Petra, but there's a lot of places where they're carved in. I would definitely probably tie in basalt, partially because I really just think basalt is more fascinating than I realized as a rock. Those would certainly off the top of my head. I mean, I've seen some other just beautiful rocks traveling around that would be fun to do.
Yeah. So just shocking. I mean, a picture book of these. I could almost imagine a coffee book table that's just stunning photos of these. I'm okay. That leads to another kind of question. This came out. This is an oldish book now. I mean, 2009, 2010,
something like that. Yeah.
Wasn't it?
Well, there's 2 editions of the book. There's the original hardback, and then it was republished as a paperback edition. So the original hardback was
in
2009.
2019. Yeah.
Yeah, and then
okay, gotcha.
Okay,
all right. So, what was my question? Oh, what's the interest? I mean, have you had people interested in follow-ups or in different versions or different styles of this? And have you thought about? Is there anything in progress that you would continue on along?
It's an interesting question.
Or are you kind of done with it? You're like, I did that, and I want to move on. I'm doing other stuff now.
Well, it's all of that. I mean, I have moved on, but it's still how I see the world. I still, I watch movies and I notice the building stone in the back of, movies. And,
yeah.
I'm like, oh, there's that. And I've had, I had a little bit of connection with people, but it's been less than I'd sort of hoped because, I mean, it seems to me it's just still such a fascinating topic. I mean, I think where it would be interesting, and I would love to have someone do something, is to put together a field guide to cities. I'm not the only person who is sort of grabbed these or sort of found these stories of building stone in different cities. I mean, and I have, I don't know, probably a half dozen plus field guides. But I think it would be fun is to put together actually a field guide to, 10 different, a dozen different cities, walking tours.
popular tourist things. I meant to look this up, but I seem to remember the Smithsonian had something for the Smithsonian buildings because everybody's walking the National Mall. They did something on their app, maybe a short. I'd have to look this up, but I thought it was some short geological description of the building stones for the specifics of the museums. Places where people walk frequently, but it was not the level of detail that you go into in your book. It was more kind of paragraph form.
I forget if it's an app. There's a woman whose name's escaping me right now in London. Ruth, her last name is escaping me right this minute, who basically put together an app of buildings in London. And so you could look at it, and London, Seattle's pretty easy. There's like 10 buildings,
Yeah. No, that's right. Okay, maybe we could do it right here because I think, Chris, you had a similar question to what I have, which I want to know. I want to know what your favorite one is, but I'll start with mine and then maybe we can go around.
Yeah.
Everybody say their favorite.
Wait, hold on, Jesse. Hold on.
Oh,
well, are you saying what's your favorite building stone, or which one is your favorite story that was built into the book? What are you asking?
Well, I kind of grouped them together. What's my favorite chapter? What's my favorite rock story? Which one gave me new appreciation? And I'm going to cheat because I kind of had two. The Morton Gneiss was for me just it's an old rock, so it's near and dear to my heart. That's what I did my PhD in, was super old rocks from Northern Canada, Dave. So I was immediately attracted to old, beautiful gneisses as a building stone. So that was great. And the story of the quarrying there was really cool. But your chapter on slate gave me a really new appreciation for slate, which is everywhere here in Pennsylvania. And that really gave me a really new appreciation. The Morton Gneiss was I kind of liked it because it's near and dear. The slate gave me a brand new appreciation for that. So I really appreciated that chapter as well. And so Chris, maybe we can go Chris's and then David.
You want me to go next or David go next? Yeah. Okay.
No,
all right.
Chris next.
All right. So, I'm kind of with you, Jesse. I really liked the Morton Gneiss thing. But I'm gonna choose a different one. But David, I want to ask you about this. The Morton Gneiss, you said that they use it as a base in some of the buildings, and then they put, I think, sedimentary rocks on top of that, right?
Or they look
nonconformity.
A light colored rock tends to be sedimentary or
yeah. Is that done? What was that done deliberately to create a geologic principle with the rock, like the nonconformity, this massive gap in time, or is that just the way it worked out artistically or for whatever reason?
I say this affectionately. You're such a geo dork to think that.
I know. I love it.
Look, the great unconformity.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Sadly, no. It was more from a color aesthetic, and they wanted the dark color was often to draw attention to the doorway. And I mean, one thing
interesting.
I'm sorry to interrupt. One thing I really realized in doing this, and I allude to it a couple times in the book, architects have no clue about the building stone. They don't know, really don't care where it's from. They have no idea how old it is or anything. So if it's blue, they love it. If it's green for the building, they don't want it, or whatever that is. So sadly, I don't ever get that. It's the nice thing about it is being a geologist, you can see those and point those out to people and get people to think, wow. I mean, the Morton Gneiss, I just did a building stone tour today, and it's so cool. People are just like, wow.
Yeah, it's such a beautiful rock. I mean, it's
exactly.
amazing.
Yeah. Oh, that's so interesting.
All right. Well, I'm going to answer the question then.
Okay.
So I'm going to go, I'm between, this is really hard for me to do, but I'm going to go with the Carrara marble, because we're talking about this warping and buckling and sometimes even spalling off in Chicago. And I found that to be fascinating. So David, can you tell our listeners a little bit about what's the story behind this particular marble? Because it has an interesting backstory.
Yeah, we all know the Carrara marble, Michelangelo's marble, the most famous marble in the world. And in the late 60s, like sort of 70s, the Standard Oil Company decided to build the tallest marble monument in the world. So they clad their headquarters 80 stories in Carrara marble. And unfortunately, calcite has this tendency that when during the freeze-thaw cycle to expand and contract differently on the different axes. And when they cut the stone into the thin panels, the way panels are held onto a building is, say the panel's up 1.5 inches wide, down on the top part of the panel, the thin top part, there'll be a little groove, a kerf, and then there'll be two L-shaped brackets on the bottom and two L-shaped brackets on the top. And so the panel sort of rests in there. And basically what they did on that building is they probably put the panels in a little tight. And as the freeze-thaw cycle, as you can imagine, in Chicago, quite a bit greater than the freeze-thaw cycle in, say, Rome, the panels started to freeze. And they noticed, like, within a few years, they started to bow off the buildings. I forget if they went concave or convex, but they started to do that. And after a little bit, 2 panels fell off. I mean, from pretty high up. And these are panels that are what, a couple feet wide and a couple feet tall. I mean, this is a couple 100 pounds. Unfortunately, no one was either injured or killed from it. And they realized, aka the lawyers realized, we got to do something about this. So they took every single panel off the building.
Oh my gosh, that's crazy.
40,000 panels, and they replaced them with granite from Mount Airy granite from North Carolina. They then took the 40,000 Carrara marble blocks or panels, crushed up almost all of them, and used them as landscaping at a Standard Oil refinery. They did take some of the panels, crush them up, and put them on a camp. I think it's University of Illinois Champaign campus. They lined up a pond with it, and a bunch of fish died. They thought that the Carrara marble did it, but years later, I mean, I tracked down someone who had done the research on it, and he sent me a piece of that Carrara marble. So I actually have a chunk of Carrara marble from the Standard Oil facility. And they supposedly made clocks and bookends out of it. I've never been able to find them. I looked online. It's been a long time.
Yeah.
But
Oh, that's super interesting. So I have a kind of, a comment and then a question. I was really shocked at the lack of research on the stone kind of structure, the physical ramifications, or just the realization that, marble will deform with heat thaw cycles, and it probably shouldn't be used as paneling. That seemed, and you said that a research professor got looped in and started studying the panels and kind of when they're evaluating these things. And it reminded me of my PhD supervisor when I was a grad student. There was, I'm going to forget the details of the story, but in curling, the ice curling sport, the stones that they throw are a really particular granite from somewhere. I can't remember where they're quarried from, but the quarry was kind of running out, and they have this really particular series of physical things down to the electrical conductivity of them matters so it's they're really, really expensive, really hard, and they break a bunch, and they're running off each other all the time in the sport. Anyway, my PhD supervisor was thinking about the electrical conductivity of the stone because it's so useful and so unique, the characteristics of it. And it reminded me of that story. But my question for you is, how did you gain a really deep appreciation for both architecture and structural engineering, or the physical properties, or you said the architects don't think about the geology, but did you learn a lot about architecture in this? And what did you appreciate about this, I don't know, stylistically or something like that, about why they chose the rocks they chose, I guess?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good point. I mean, I've long been interested in architecture, and I guess I had never thought about it as what, stone does convey a message. I mean, again, I was just out today, and we're reminded again today, leading a tour. You look at older banks, and they're so often made of granite. They're trying to convey a message. Your money is safe. It's in a stone building. It's not made of wood or some crap like that. Or go to corporate boardrooms. They're marble. They're trying to convey a message that we can afford the best. We have the stone of Michelangelo, the Taj Mahal. So stone carries a message. So that whenever I see buildings, I think about that. What are they trying to convey with it? And then I also sort of notice a lot more just some of the detail, which rocks are doing well and which ones aren't, what's eroding, what isn't eroding, how does that convey? And then if you look at the older buildings in cities, you often get an insight into what is the local geology, because they all start with the local building material. Then they expand as they get richer, taste change, they go further and further afield. And Seattle is a perfect example. We don't have any good building stone in the Seattle area, but there's quarries around, and all the older buildings are from those quarries. And then at a certain point, the city's wealthy enough, and boom, it's from all over the world.
Okay. Gotcha.
So Jesse,
what
he never answered the question. We got to
Yeah.
get this answer. So David, what's your favorite building stone or fact, or a combination between the rock itself and the cultural history that goes behind it aspect of your book? What's your favorite?
Yeah, there's, as you can imagine, so many. I mean, I had such a fun time doing it. Two of them are ones that there's a single building. One of my favorite buildings is the home of the poet Robinson Jeffers in Carmel, California. And I've gone down there many times for family reasons. So I've seen this just wonderful building, but he wrote just so evocatively of place and of the geology in this building. He built it by hand out of the boulders that he pulled up off the beach below his house. And I love that story. And then I love the story of the little gas station in eastern Colorado, in Lamar, Colorado, made of petrified wood. And when I first started, I forget exactly how I even found out about it, but I ended up sending taking out an ad in the newspaper, something like that, and saying, hey, I'm just interested in the gas station. Do you have any stories about the gas station? And the first person who got hold of me, I think it was by email, guy, I think in his 80s, named Elmer Smith. What a great name.
Yeah. Unbelievable.
He was a vet of veterinary medicine. And he had this great story. He's like, oh yeah, I remember when I was a kid, my mom told us never to take any of the petrified wood because it's on private land. And clearly, the guy who built that building, he didn't listen, and we never liked that. And it was just a great story. And then, going there and researching it, this beautiful little building, it's now can literally practically be hidden behind an RV. It's that small a building. So they use all the petrified wood, and there are seams. The mortar was colored green, so it looks like there's vines winding up through the buildings, between the building blocks. And somehow I figured out that the guy who actually built it, not who paid for it and stole the rock, but the guy who actually built it was the guy who invented Pop Rocks candy.
No kidding.
So
wow,
that I thought was okay. How random a fact is that?
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah.
That's amazing. That's
so
such
cool.
a good one. I mean,
Jesse,
the thing you
hold on,
describe about
Jesse,
Olympus. Okay, all right. Yeah, go ahead.
Jesse, well, just a personal story. Do you remember you and I in downtown Custer, South Dakota? And a lot of these buildings are made out of this beautiful garnet schist. It's awesome stuff. And we went into this store, and on the inside, he had this fabric of garnet schist all over the walls. It was the whole building was made out of this stuff, and it was intermingled with that tufa. Do you remember that?
Yes, I do remember that. Okay, yeah,
and
I was
that's
not
what
remembering
turned us on to tufa. Yeah, we're like, we have to go find this.
In the wall. Yeah. You're like, where did that come from? Must be nearby, because there's garnet schist from right nearby in the walls here.
That's right.
It's spectacular. But
I was just going to say that, David, your book, like, I constantly found myself thinking of my own experiences in these strange places, not necessarily big cities like downtown DC or Chicago or something like that, but in places like Custer or Hill City, South Dakota. And you're right. They start with the building material that's local, and then they'll expand out from there. And it's just, I just found myself thinking about my own personal experiences, oftentimes with Jesse over here. And it just brought me down memory lane. And I really appreciated that aspect of it.
But there is something, David, you mentioned the value of place. And I experience this personally in Pennsylvania now. We're in this ridge and valley, and our house has, you know, it was built in 1980 or something, and it has a big stone wall in it. That's all built with sandstone locally, and you walk around our property, and there's like sandstone kind of everywhere, just jutting up out of the soil, and it's really cool. It feels really cool to have that and to be like, oh, that stuff came from here or
Yeah.
right nearby here, right? I mean, there's something, I don't know what it is. There's something it triggers in the heartstrings. I think that near that where it's local, I guess. There's something to that. So anyway, I appreciated that about these stories, especially the brownstone thing. That was kind of a cool story too. And you talked in the brownstone chapter about how how things come in and out of popularity. What's popular now?
Ooh, that's
And
a
the
good
building
question.
stones. Are you seeing in new buildings, you know, when you give these tours, is there something new that's popular and weird maybe, or?
I mean, you see it where I think the popularity in weird is more in kitchen countertops, where it's smaller quantities. We were down at a house, someone we know, and they had this countertop that was, you know, I mean, it was 6 feet wide and 15 feet long. I mean, this was an amazing house. And just it was some sort of metamorphic rock. I think it was from Brazil, but I think, you know, it was just completely unusual. And I think that's, you know, that having the money to do that, get really unusual small quantities of rock. And for a while, Finnish rock was really in the rock. If you know the Rapakivi granites,
Oh yeah.
those were in, and they still are. You see them a lot. You see, there's one called
Oh,
Baltic
can you describe that?
Yeah. So
What's
the
it look like?
Rapakivi granites are ones where there'll be a feldspar with then and I can't remember which ones, with then a rim of another feldspar around it. They're generally often the ones that I've counted are about 1 billion plus years old, and quite a few have come out of Scandinavia. And Rapakivi means weathered granite, which you wouldn't think would work well as a building stone, but
Yeah.
they're really pretty,
You
lots
might,
of pinks, and there's ones, there are lots of reds, and then there's ones that have this Baltic brown with it. It's a brown sort of brownish feldspar with a greenish rim around it. It's really a lovely rock.
oh, it's beautiful. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's super, super interesting. All right, I'm curious to move on, Chris, but do you have anything about the book you want to tidy up, or
Well, I
thoughts
want to
about
just ask,
building stones?
yeah, kind of about what you just talked
Okay.
about, David. Have you incorporated any of this into your own house,
Ooh,
whether
good
that be
question.
countertops or landscape material? You know, what does
Oh,
that look
interesting.
like?
So in two ways. So one is, oddly enough, I don't like granite countertops because they're too busy. And
Okay,
so
interesting.
we have one of those quartzite ones. It's basically
Oh, yeah.
a quartz that's bonded to a quartzite that's been bonded. So it's really nice. But what I do have is we have a bookcase that we had custom made for the house, and in it is a blackboard from where I went to high school. So my high school, when they replaced all of the blackboards with whiteboards, they had the blackboards for sale at some second use type place. And I wasn't able to get the one that I mentioned in the book, which is from my elementary school, but I was able to get one from my high school. So I have the blackboard from my high school, about 18 inches by, 45, 50 inches tall. So I use it every day. I mean, I write up, it's where my wife and I write notes to each other about,
Oh,
get
that's
this,
cool.
do that. So
That's
I do
yeah.
have that.
Yeah.
Love that.
And I do have, I actually, well, speaking of the one thing we were talking about, I do have a cairn, I basically have a small cairn in our front yard from boulders I've collected just to make a cairn. But yeah, and like any geologist, there are rocks all over the damn house. Yeah. And I collected it all the quarries I went to. So I have Morton Ice. I have a piece of Carrara marble from Carrara. I've got, slate. I've got the coquina from St. Augustine. So everything I always collected where I could.
That's very cool. Okay, you brought up cairns, so I want to talk about cairns because you have another book on cairns, and I have not read it, but I've working up in Northwest Territories and Nunavut of Canada, I've seen cairns around. It as hiking you do. What's the elevator pitch for the book? What's the stories? What provoked you to write a book on cairns?
I was actually asked to do it by the publisher. She said, I've been trying to get people interested in writing a book about cairns, and no one's been interested. And I said, what do you mean? That sounds totally cool. So
Yeah,
I left on it. Yeah, I mean, it's basically everything you never thought to think about cairns. So I have chapters on a bunch of, ones from different expeditions. I have a bunch of cultural aspects about how people used cairns from around the world. I mean, the subtitle of the book is Messengers in Stone. So I basically making this point that people have been using cairns for thousands of years as a way to convey a message to others. And whether it is, hey, I went this way, or I want to honor my relative, or avoid this, or people also use cairns as a way to transfer energy, where if there's several cultures that came across where people would, if they're tired, they'd sort of rub a rock on themselves and then put that on a pile as a way to transfer their weakness, their tiredness to the rock. And it's also just a way for people to connect to each other. And, they like, Thoreau, there's a cairn at several cairns at Walden Pond, and people would bring rocks and, make that connection. So,
Okay. Yeah,
David,
really
it seems that recently, at least like in the backpacking and hiking community, cairns are very polarizing. Have you dealt with that at all? Did you deal with that in your book? Okay.
I don't as much. I mean, I do and I don't. In the book, I start out, I think it starts, but I know there's a section where I talk about being a ranger and regularly destroying cairns.
Okay, so why? Because I don't know this. What's polarizing?
Well, so
what's the discussion?
there's a couple aspects of it. The main polarization, two parts. One is that, particularly in national parks, cairn leading people off trail and either taking people the potential to an area that is beyond their ability, or over a fragile ecosystem, particularly when I was in the desert and it's, lots of fragile soils out there. So that was one aspect of it. The other aspect of it is that you get what are these sort of these villages of cairns. And I wouldn't even call them cairns. I'd call them stacked stones. And there'll be 100 of these stacks. And there's the aesthetic problem. And then there's the ecological problem that when you take rocks that have been sitting particularly in alpine ecosystems, you remove the rock that, something is growing around it, you kill it. So those are where the controversy.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah. Okay, so just too many people making too many cairns unnecessarily is the idea. Okay.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It creates two groups of people. Then you have the cairn builders and the cairn destroyers, and it's a thing.
Interesting.
Yeah,
it is.
Yeah,
very much.
That's really interesting. So you mentioned park ranger. I was really curious about this. How did your time? How many you were at Arches? Is that right?
I was at Arches for 3 years or 3 seasons, and that really set me on the path to being a writer, in the sense that one thing that struck me is as a ranger, people are always asking questions. What are the rocks? What are the plants? What's this? And I would try and give them answers. But as I noticed people doing this more and more, I really tried to encourage them to ask those same questions when they got home, because the answer is going to be just as interesting. And so when my wife and I left Moab and moved to Boston, that's what I started doing, was trying to ask the questions about it. And the one that was most obvious as a question was to understand the geology. And that's really what led me into building stone. I mean, it's direct. I see it a very direct line between park ranger and building stone.
Yeah. Do you see a direct line between park ranger and science communicator and teacher in a way too? Because it seems like a good place to hone those explanatory teaching skills that you clearly have, and you write really well. Was it a honing experience for you too, as well as an inspirational experience?
It was more of an inspirational, I think, experience of not having, in college, I hadn't done any teaching. And when the job I had before the Park Service, I worked for a little nonprofit educational field school and taught programs. And I realized I really liked to share that information with people, and found that people enjoyed learning. And so, it's been honed over the last 20 plus years of more and more continuously doing that.
Because I think the park ranger, I mean, Chris and I have a deep appreciation, especially for those Southwest United States parks, do an exceptional job of education, whether it's just via the billboards and the placement or rangers. I mean, the National Park Service does an incredible job of education in most parks, I think. And it's been a while since I've been to Arches, but I remember it being pretty good. But it's been over a decade since I've been there. So anyway, we have an appreciation for that, and I think a lot of people visit parks and are like, "Oh, the park ranger, that seems like a cool gig."
Yes.
Is it a cool gig?
For me, it was great. I mean, I had two. I went from Arches to Boston to work at the Frederick Law National Historic Site, so a 2-acre site. But when I graduated from college, my mom said to me, David, I looked at all your report cards. You never shut up in school. You always were disturbing the other children. So I've just continued that life of blabbering away about stuff that I find interesting. And fortunately, in a park, other people seem to find it interesting too. So.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. That's great.
So David, back to the book. I have a question for you that I'm really interested in how you answer this. So because you encourage just general lay people to become urban geologists, what does that look like? How does that happen when someone has very little experience? How do they know what they're looking at? What kind of tools can they utilize? Yeah. How do you start that kind of mentality of looking at the city differently?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. I mean, I think with stone, one of the great things about building stone is it's usually very obvious that it's either a sandstone or a granite or a marble. There's often, because it's polished, it's beautiful. So I think in the sense of having like a field guide or having, a guide to geology, you can start looking and start sort of getting some sort of ideas that way. There's a handful of guides out there. I mean, I think more people notice it than we realize, and particularly I think people who are geologists. And so reaching out to them, particularly ones where there's fossils, and that really helps because that's obviously such an engaging part of the story.
Oh, sure. In the stone itself on the buildings.
Yeah, in the stone on the buildings. And I think, from a bigger picture point of view, geology gets in the news so much, that when those, the two time scales intersect, when the human time scale and the geologic time scale intersect, it's, being aware of, the volcanoes or tsunamis. I mean, unfortunately, it's often during bad news. But to me, it's just getting out there and looking and trying to pay attention and trying to ask questions like, why are there hills here? Ask the basic questions. Why are there hills here? Why is there water? Why is there a creek there? Oh, that's weird. That tree is growing there. That doesn't make sense. Oh, there's water spilling out of the sidewalk. What's going on there? It's just, it's paying attention and asking questions, I guess.
Yeah.
Which is what geology is all about.
Yeah,
That's right.
no, it's exactly right. Just look around, observe, and be curious. And I guess, do you find... I find great value in the local rock and gem club kind of thing. These are massive resources of knowledge. Just local people who there's actually no online forum for it. It's just like you got to find your local meetup,
right?
And go. Is that the case for building stones too? Do you think do big cities, you've lived in several, do they have strong building stone kind of communities or people?
Less so. It's individuals who have been like me, a little bit dorky, and I've tracked down ones in GSA. When there's a GSA meeting, sometimes there'll be one. There's a variety of state geological surveys have published guides to it. So it's just there's a handful. And the thing is, a lot of times, I look at the Morton Gneiss or the Salem limestone or Carrara marble. Those are found all over the place. So once you start picking out one or two, you realize, the Verde Antique, the different slate, you start seeing them everywhere. And so there's an advantage of that you can take your knowledge and transfer and carry it with you.
You should have a little, what would you call it? You should have a little consulting business for people who want to remodel their kitchen and they want to find the coolest geological, kitchen countertop or something, and call you up and you help them figure it out. That'd be pretty good.
Yeah, I've thought of doing that, just going to buildings in downtown Seattle and saying, "Hey, would you like me to write up something about?" And the energy level is a million other things I'm also doing. So,
Sure,
but yeah,
sure,
no, it's
sure.
really,
No, yeah,
That's
yeah.
right.
it'd be sort of fun to do.
Has the geocaching world, is there geocaching locations or sort of what are they called? The hunts you can kind of go and you got to check all the boxes.
Oh,
What
like
are
a
those things
scavenger
called? Why am
hunt. Yeah.
a scavenger hunt, kind of a scavenger hunt for building stone type things. Is
I've
I
not come
mean
across, and and
no, okay,
I've occasionally, like with kids groups, sort of tried to create a little something like that, and it certainly would be easy to come up with, a dozen questions and find that.
yeah.
So
So you lead walking tours, right? You
yeah,
just led one this morning, right?
yeah.
And what does that look like? What does that look like? How many people? What are you talking about? Where you're going? How variable is it? Trip to trip.
Yeah,
How does
so
one get access to this?
I do it for a variety of different groups, and the one I do in Seattle, today's there were 6 or 7 people on it. A woman bought it as a gift for her husband, so and took some friends. So this one starts out looking at the Great Fire in Seattle in 1889, which changes Seattle from a city built of wood to a city built of brick and stone. So stuff starts to come in. So we basically do about a 1.5 mile walk and stop and look at different buildings. So we look at one of the buildings that has a wonderful example of the local stone. There's another one, we look at the brick. There's this gorgeous brick building that is designed to look like a mountain. We go look at terracotta. We then continue down the block and look at Indiana limestone. And then we look at travertine, then Morton gneiss. So yeah, it's a bunch of different. And so in each location, I talk about the geology, and then I talk about some human story that connects to it and why it is in Seattle.
Oh, that's cool. How often do you do these?
Infrequently. People contact me about it, or there's a couple of organizations. Like I've done it for various museums, architecture associations. So it's real random, but real fun.
Yeah, it sounds like fun. You can just see little Jesse and I tagging along with David B.
Yeah,
Williams.
exactly.
Yeah.
Make it out to Seattle after.
Yeah, definitely get a hold of me.
Great.
Yeah.
That'd be super fun. I would love that. Go and learn about a place, a new place, or a place that's home that gives you a new filter with which to see the world.
Yeah. I always tell people when at the conclusion of the talk, I say there's 3 reasons I do this. One is we're often told that nature is out there somewhere, and yet we can find these amazing natural history stories. Stone means something. Again, the whole idea of marble or granite. And then the third one is there's just a lot of bad architecture out there, and you can bypass the bad architecture. It's like, oh, look at that. That's a really cool rock. That building's hideous, but the rock is really cool.
The rock is awesome. Yeah.
So
bad design, but they picked a good rock.
Right.
Exactly.
That's
David,
awesome.
before we wrap up with our last question, I do have another burning question, kind of as a side tangent. If I'm in downtown Chicago and I'm thinking of this building that has just beautiful, these nice panels along the base of it, I don't know how high up they go. How would one? I'm a geologist. I can look at that and recognize it for what it is. But how would I know the story behind that? How would somebody go ahead and find out where that rock was sourced? Is there
that's a great question.
avenue for that?
That's a great question.
It is really hard because if you reach out, say, to the architect may have a clue, but more often than not, they don't. They'll like, oh, it's Italian marble. Or we had that made specially for us. People literally said that to me. So
they invented the rock out of thin air
Yeah,
for
exactly.
you? Like, came from somewhere.
Yeah. What I started doing was I again started collecting what guidebooks I could that other people did, and then started piecing together the stories. And yeah, it's a lot of work. Or I would try and track down, okay, when's the building built? And so every once in a while the newspaper.
Yeah, because of the fads. That's right. Yeah.
They would say, but often it's granite. And we know that most of the building stone that is granite is not granite. And most of the building stone that's marble is not marble. So it's tough. It's really tough. It's really hard to do.
When it's not locally sourced, that's easy.
Right.
If it's locally sourced, that's easy. But yeah. Okay.
Okay, this is a question I had for you as well to follow up on that, Chris. Sorry, we're distracting here, but how finely tuned is your eye? Do you think, David? Now, can you walk into like a showroom for countertops or whatever, and can you like pick out and name, where a lot of these things come from, or are there just way too many varieties?
Way too many varieties.
Is that right?
I
Okay.
know the handful of building stones. I know, but no way. It is.
There's just too many out there.
Worldwide stone trade is almost impossible to fathom that they're shipping dead weight all over the world. Yeah, I don't even try.
Yeah, I would imagine. Yeah, it's just too complicated.
All right. Well, all right. I think we're at that time, Jesse, right?
Yeah, let wrap us up, Chris.
Yeah. So, David, we always ask this. I can't wait to hear your answer. What has been your best day as a geoscientist?
Oh, that's easy. The day I got to I was in Iceland and got to go into the valley of Thingvellir and walk across the plate boundary from North America to Europe. That was the coolest. That was just mind-blowing for me. That, or going to see the green sand beach in Hawaii that I had seen in college, and finally 25 years later got to see this olivine beach. Those are two of the, and then the third one is being on Mount St. Helens exactly 1 week to the day before it's started erupting, not the 1980 cycle, but when it started erupting in 2004. We got to the summit, got off the mountain, came home, and found out that after the next day they closed the mountain, and literally 1 week later it erupted.
No kidding. So that was October of 2004, right? So yeah, wow. Okay, that's so.
Chris
cool.
was there soon after.
I went out there soon after. Yeah.
Soon after that, it started erupting. Chris went out for a couple of days. Yeah. Oh, that's so interesting. Well, all right, David, this has been a really great discussion, and I really enjoyed the book. It's a great book, and opened our eyes to a whole bunch of stuff. People can find out more about you we have a great website, geologywriter.com.
Yeah, pretty simple.
Good. Yes, exactly. Really nice website URL there. I appreciate that. And there's all sorts of contact links on that website. People can find out more about you. But thank you for spending time with us. We really appreciate it. It was a pleasure talking to you. And when Chris and I make it out to Seattle someday, we'll come on a walking tour.
Yeah, I'd love it.
Yeah,
Nothing. Great.
absolutely.
I appreciate your enthusiasm and questions. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Take care, David.
Take care. Thank you.
Hey, thanks for listening. You find out all about us, planetgeocast.com. That's our website. There's a contact us link there. Follow us on all social medias at Planet Geocast. Download our mobile app, the CampGeo mobile app. There you can get basically the intro level college level geoscience class in audiobook form, a whole bunch of other visual podcast series on the geology of our national parks, and a bunch of other episodes on Earth's climate, etc. Download the first link in your show notes. CampGeo mobile app. And leave us a rating and review if you're on Spotify or YouTube. Leave us a comment. We love hearing it.
Cheers.
Peace.